This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is called to order. May we have roll call, please? Yes?
Here. Here.
Warren is gone. I see he didn't say he's here. I didn't even notice. That's how crazy I am right now. So tonight, Michael had elected to have this as an open evaluation, so it will be in that style versus closed. And commissioners, looking through the document, an idea that I had is that we go section to section versus question to question. So having a section and addressing that section, any concerns or any statements you want to make or positives that you would like to make in that section. So under like individual characteristics. And if you want to hyper focus on one of them, that's fine. But that was a thought I had on it, and we've done it various ways. I think that's the best way, or it becomes too bogged down in from question to question. But what do you guys think?
You want that in the form of the motion?
And
No,
to
I
accept-
like that
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, because looking, overall, I don't think there's a whole lot to dive down into. So, yeah, but I like the idea of section by section, not every.
every
Starting with
question.
one, starting with two.
Okay. Then as far as the next steps or the steps through it, I think we should go commissioner to commissioner. And then if you choose to not make a statement, that's fine. And give everyone a bit of time to state what they need to without then going back and forth more in a banter, but more in a statement. What do you guys think?
I like that.
Mel?
Yep.
Okay. Melissa?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to start with is the fact that my document was lost. And I have this ready, more completed document that I want to share. And as I redid it, I told Michael this, my child cut the tip of her finger off yesterday, and then it sort of ruined the night of finishing the document. So I apologize for the comment section not being completed to what I had hoped for. But 5 hours later, it was fine. Only went down to the bone.
It'll go back.
Yep, it will grow back, hopefully. She might not have fingerprints, but
No, I know that.
so first section, and we have this great document that Michael gave us by putting the categories and the commissioners' numbers together in a chart. So you can see the totals at the bottom. And then on the first page, do we need this to be on the screen or? Yeah, I would just say that. For not everything, but so the first page is the consolidated scores. So of this evaluation and then of last year's evaluation, and you can see changes there in various places. So that is a helpful kind of overall view of just numbers. And then one last thing on the evaluation process. At some point, as a commission, we'll need to revisit the document. We do need to update it to get it back to easier to edit and get it a better formatted document, because we're having trouble with that, transferring from different types of programs, but also in questions and anything else that we would want to do. So we'll have to think about that as a future bit of work that we'll want to do as a commission, and hopefully sooner than later versus, maybe a extra meeting to do a review and edit versus waiting till next year at this time. Okay. All right. So maybe we'll start by not me making the first statement or Melissa because she's on the end or me on the end, but kind of flip around as to who starts. Okay. So under managers' goals and objectives, I guess what I would like to start with that. I know that it was kind of the least commented on section in the evaluation, and we didn't necessarily score it the same, but I did. I did put a score, and I used just our scoring, and then Melissa and she had asked me about with some evaluation questions as we were going through the process because it was her first one, and she did score it. So looking at our documents, does anyone want to address this section with Mr. Cardus first? We may need a few seconds to look through things since everything's all. The originals, or do you? I'll leave it at the end. Yes. And the reason why is that I think it's easier for me to find the pages. Thank you. Do you have something then, Lisa? Or do you want your booklet? Okay. This will just help me to get section to section. Thank you. Great. Anyone have any comments on the goals and objectives?
I can start. Whoa, that's really too close. Yeah, I can start. This is a little much. Sorry. Over here. Thank you for that tip. Look at you managing. 2 thumbs up. I this category I scored a 5. I think Michael, I think you do a really good job of identifying goals for yourself, which is like a huge part of any manager job, really. Yeah, this feedback is terrible. Can I just keep moving this far away from me? And I think you were starting from nothing since there was no strategic plan. So you're starting from nothing. And I think this is a really impressive section in terms of looking at all of the things, like all of the different departments that you have to consider when you're setting organizational, like the city as an organization, goals. And it's a lot of prioritizing between competing interests. And I think you've done a really good job of identifying, taking feedback on the priorities and what should be on the list, as well as starting to check the boxes. And I think now that this is in place and it'll just be updates instead of starting from scratch, I'm really excited to see in your tenure as city manager what's going to come next and what big things are going to get checked off the list. I think it's fantastic.
And I also gave it a 5, and as you can see just by I did put a few words in there and I reiterate what Melissa said, that I think the agenda that you put forth this year in I said ambitious agenda to accomplish goals or to create goals and then accomplish them was very apparent. And I appreciated that. And I think working through this strategic plan with us and the obvious work that you put into it and the city put into it, the staff, it is really reflective in those goals. So I I think it's one of my, or the strongest places in the evaluation, and I'm happy to see this move forward even more.
Jarrell, can I add one thing that I omitted? This is missing from his overall rating.
Yes, because we had taken it out, and that was that document
Okay, so
that we will put back into it.
so will these be counted
Scores.
towards his overall rating or not?
Well,
If we have
others-
two,
We could make it.
because it could be a weighted, it could be a weighted.
yeah, they can in tonight add that number if they would like, and it would be in the overall rating.
I just wanted to put that out there since it's not included and
I
it
think that's a
seems,
good idea.
it seems fair.
Any other comments on goals?
I thought I said the least until I saw Melanie. Warrants, they said nothing. But no, I agree with everything on the list and Terrell said. As far as, we just implemented the strategic plan. It is ambitious and aggressive, and I like it, and I will definitely score it as a 5 on what's been achieved up to this point. Would you like to score it?
No, I think I agree with that. I want to thank everybody for putting this together. Because it's, of the 8 years I've been on, I think this made the most sense of anything that we've done. So thank you for that. No, I agree with that as far as that goes.
Okay. Next section. Individual characteristics. Anyone want to start with any feedback?
You want me to start again? I'm getting the nod.
Sure, go ahead.
We're on the,
You don't
Um,
have to, but
No, it's fine. Somebody's got to do it. I mean, it's self-evident what I scored. I think the thing that I would say here is I think it's really obvious, Michael, that you're a self-starter, which is ideal for your position. And I think your judgment seems to be pretty evenly pulled between city operations and community desires. And I also think it's important to say that out loud, that I think that's appropriate for your role in this community, is that you should be pulled, and you obviously are pulled by many competing interests. And I think I do see balance there. Yeah, that's what I would say out loud. And that's what I said in my notes. And I guess I would say, like, I would expect that seems like the appropriate, that's part of the checks and balances. And I think that it's appropriate that you're being pulled consistently all the time between these forces. Yeah, it makes your role unique.
I agree. I also scored high on the self-starter aspect and good judgment, or highest, I should say. And I think that balance is hard, and I think you're working towards that diligently. One place, it's tough sometimes in the questions to, because if it's a 3-part question, like the third one, I would say there's 5s, and then there's more, like I'd like to see some work on it. And so I do think you in like enthusiasm, I think it's one of your strengths. I think the cooperation aspect of working I think you work really well with others, but I think as a whole staff, we even as a whole, as a city, we can always do better at that. And so I have a pretty high um, expectation and probably a bit from the past as well. And so I'm maybe more critical of that. And I think it's one of our weaknesses in the past in certain realms, and that we're working more and more towards it. And I see it with staff throughout, not just you. And but I can relate this evaluation to staff because you are their leader. And I think that it's an important part of a leader is to have um, communication that goes throughout from the lowest level worker who might be a summer employee just working 20 hours a week to our department heads and you. So I think it's important. I hope that made sense. Anyone else want to give feedback on this section?
Um, I like Michael's attitude. He's always got a smile on his face and always positive and forward thinking. I'm kind of with Darrell a little bit on disconnect reading the employees evaluation, trying to balance all that out. I don't know. I just see things a lot differently than I kind of saw there. I don't know. I couldn't be happier. I probably should have scored more fives there than I did.
I had a hard time distinguishing between a 4 and a 5, so I went the higher number. So very close. I think one of the, I made a mention of this, and I don't know if it fits at this particular time, but over the years, the hardest thing that we had getting over was the budget. And awful lot of wrangling there. And I think you and Paige together present the budget, and it's great. And it's an area we don't talk too much about, but it's so darn important. But I've really appreciate how that moves very smoothly, and presenting alternatives in a lot of cases. So I don't know if we think about that an awful lot, but that's a huge part of what we're all about, and I think it goes very well. I yield to Melissa.
Any last comments on that before we move on? So next section, we have professional skills and status. Anyone?
I'll go first, I guess. I'm impressed with Michael, finding, our problems with our zoning, planning, boards and stuff like that, and identifying these problems and coming up with solutions to that. That's kind of what we're thinking that we need. And, that has been missing and stuff like that. So Michael seems to be on top of all these issues that come up, and there's been a lot, and it's ongoing and will be. Thank you.
I'll speak on this next. I think the second, I'm sorry. One of the expectations I had as far as when we were interviewing for the city manager was someone who was innovative. And for a small town, that's not always very easy. We have, and I know have this conversation with you, that we have like a 40,000 people want in our community, and a, you know, a tax base of 7,800. And so what we want as a community, and not just as a commission, but I mean as a community, and what we can really do with it is different. So being innovative, and I think our push to thinking outside the box. I mean, in my opinion, we can always do more of it, always, because I think that's where we get the best product. But I know even with O Street Connector and the city working um, with various community entities and state entities, and we had to be pretty innovative and thoughtful. And I think we did a lot of good things by doing that and by being innovative. And that was obviously helped to be driven by you. So I appreciate that. And I always want to see that of 5, you know, in any job or any job performance. I would say one of the weaknesses of just me relaying it as a commissioner, as a community, for the community, is the perceived and sometimes maybe based on something they don't understand or know or experience, um, that people are often coming to us, not often, on occasion, let me say that, occasionally, coming to us about it, feeling it's not impartial and that there's a drive for things to be chosen from opinion versus the basis of fact or need or want, whatever. Am I clearly stating that? And so I think whether it's always absolute, it's still impacting how people perceive us. And I'd like us to continue to put that as something to strive for, which is to have every community member believe that we are impartial and that we're doing this, all of us, including us, for what's best in the community. And if we could just get rid of Facebook, that would help, but we can't. So, because Facebook is not the absolute truth. Anyway, that's my, yeah, that is my opinion on that section. Anyone else?
I reflect what Jarrell just said. I think the concern of being partial and impartial is the biggest concern in this section. I'm not going to restate everything you said because I think you said it appropriately. It's a lot about perception. And I think if I could somehow rank the 5s, I think one of my favorite things about the way you approach your work, this would be like one of the top 5s of my 5s, is I feel like the bigger the challenge you're met with, the more creative you get. I think that that's a wonderful quality that should not be overlooked, that the ability to see a challenge that our community has been facing maybe for years and just a new set of eyes and a new way of thinking about it. I like to see how you sometimes turn things inside out or see things in a totally different way with new ideas that nobody has brought to the table before. I think that's one of my favorite things in this whole evaluation, one of my favorite qualities that you bring to your job. So thank you. And I don't know a better way to say it other than what I just said.
Any other comments on section 3? Right. Next section is working relationships with elected members of the city commission. Any comments? We'll give everyone a second to. Anyone else have thoughts? Well, I'll just say a few things since I think we should. One of the strengths, in my opinion, is that you, like, policy making is your strength within this, and as far as bringing those policies to us, or thoughtful dialogue to discuss policy change, or coming up with ideas that Melissa just stated that we can then carry through into new creative realms for the city. So in the first section, carrying out directives and goals of the body as a whole, I do think you're very fair. And fair is an important quality that all of us should have. As far as at the bottom, responds well to request, advice, and constructive criticism. Why I put the 3/5 is because I do feel you and I meet a lot. So we purposefully meet to discuss issues and to make sure I'm ahead of it in case I'm not understanding, or I need more information, or if there's problems that are coming to me that I would like us to discuss and start to look at in a new way and to bring to the commission later. So the 5 is for me, and I think that I'd like to see that same level with everyone in the commission and in the community in general. But as far as the commissioner, I think that's one of your strengths, and I'd like to see others working with him as well as him working with you in a deeper way to help work through the issues before we are necessarily voting on them. So it's, information gathering and concerns, or if the only time we're taking a concern to Michael is at the end in our commissioner comments, it's not really
Mhm.
as effective. So that's what I would like to see, but I think it's our responsibility as well as yours. Anyone else on the working?
My time has been much shorter, but I feel on the commission has been much shorter, but I feel like you do respond timely and appropriately. And that has helped me to be able to hit the ground running in this position, getting information to me quickly so I can get up to speed on issues. And we also meet regularly about different things. I also appreciate, that all the commissioners probably make you aware of different things happening in the community that you might not otherwise know about. I appreciate when it's a high level challenge, like high level meaning something that needs to be dealt with quickly, even if it's not an easy thing to deal with, that you meet it quickly to figure out what you can do in your role, which is different than our role. So I appreciate that you do act quickly when it's necessary. I think Darrell also had something in her notes. About some issues and how things are prioritized and might there might be some miscommunication or not clear communication for us to be hitting the mark on things not always being prioritized at the level that we might like to see them prioritized. But I think that comes with communication and all the things that you already mentioned. So I just wanted to mirror that same sentiment.
Can I elaborate? Are you done?
Yeah.
I think how I stated it is sometimes things get lost. They get put on the back burner and then they kind of go away. And I hate to say that it's not just you. I think it happens everywhere. And I think it happens a lot in city government just because of time. Again, it's the 40,000 people town concept. It happens. But sometimes those things that get lost are a big loss. And I don't want that to be our style. So those issues that do go on the back burner and get lost are the ones that I would like to. And I think we can do that. It's an easy improvement, I think. Any other comments on that section? Policy execution.
I'll start if I may. I think it's probably one of the strongest suits. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up on a lot of these issues and stuff like that, and making a ton of progress that I've seen in the 4 years I've been on the commission and stuff like that. But also, like Melissa, this is my second evaluation of Michael, but first evaluation was really high. And so I'm learning kind of as we go, but policy execution, I think, has been excellent. Thank you.
I also scored that relatively high. I think very high overall, but very knowledgeable on law, which I appreciate. And I know Jay and you banter back and forth to work through most legal issues. I know it's a team effort. I think that the biggest thing I'd like to see worked on is our ordinance enforcement review. And so I'll always put it on here until we get there. But I do think as far as looking at things in the legal realm and policy, that's one of your strengths. And I think you like it. I think you actually enjoy that part of it because it shows. Am I right? A little bit. Yes. Okay. It shows in how you present it and talk about it. Let's see. Oh, on one of the places here on ordinance review and policy is the night sky. So I know we've talked about it as a commission, and it's one of the places that I hear a lot from the public on. It doesn't seem to be implemented in the way the document is reading, and I know we have some needs to improve that ordinance, but it also sort of a thorn that we should be thinking about working on sooner than later. Any other policy execution statements? Okay, reporting. Who wants to start?
I mean, I'll start. Overall, I think when you think about all the content that we're given as commissioners, and I mean like all of it, I think, I mean, things that most of us are probably not thinking about every day, like sewer lines, or, you know, like things that aren't in our vernacular or our day to day. I think we're getting clear and concise information in a digestible way on a wide variety of topics. And I think that's really key to making the meetings and decision making happen smoothly, that we can trust we're getting that information in a way that we can all understand it at the level which we need to understand it to vote. The only concern I have, I put in here, and again, my time on here is shorter, so my time on the commission is shorter, so I have less experience to draw from, less experiences and interactions to draw from, was the recent proposed subdivision development, that there was a document that the planning board had identified as wanting to be more complete, and then it was updated and not brought before us before we got a chance to vote. That's really my only concern, or only example I have of a time I wish information would have been brought before us, that it wasn't. But I think that was already, you know, Chair Hoagland addressed that at the meeting. And so I don't feel the need to say anything else about it. But overall, I think it's like good information that we're getting.
Right. I do think overall our reporting, especially for meetings and the information you give to the community and the public, or the public and then us at the meetings, helps greatly in decision making, as well as it's very concise, or not just concise, but very detailed in such a way that it helps us to make sure we have what we need to make our decisions. I do think, and I didn't really grade it there's my teacher talking, put the score in the lower realm, because I think overall it's a very strong part of your style, is your reporting, is that we often, not often, on occasion, find out things from the paper, and I don't read the paper really, that I wish I knew about, so I could answer questions when they come to me. And one of them, and I don't know if this is something that we really can change at this stage, but I guess we could discuss, is like the hotel situation. I saw it on the front page because we have the paper at school and the kids use it for a class. And I saw it, and there was word out like in the past years that we'd get a new hotel, but I didn't know about it until I read it in the paper. And I would love to know so that I can be ahead of the curve versus behind it when people are coming to me with questions. So that is one of the examples, but that's more of a communication issue. Any other thoughts?
I'll just follow up on that too. Yeah, but I think part of it's the way we're structured as well, as far as, getting, I don't know about a hotel coming in, what everybody else does and stuff like that. So I think that's something that we just need to implement, as it comes to planning. Would be nice if we know about it at the same time. And somehow we need to find a way to address that. Because people ask me, what do you think about that new hotel? I go, what hotel? So I'd like to be a little more upfront on that, as stuff comes through planning, we're not making a decision on, it, but I just like to know that what's out there is out there. So, but I think that's something as a commission we need to implement. Thank you.
I guess one of the areas that we do get big bites on is planning. I look back through the stuff that we had to deal with. It's been a tough area. I don't know what it takes to smooth it out, but we ran into it the last time with going to have a new station, part of a town and sometimes the commissioners and they're not, there's a difference between annexation and talking about a particular area. It went very smooth with Murdoch's. We had to decide whether to annex that into the city, and we did that. Another project that we had many years ago, we didn't do that. It was misunderstood what was on the docket for that particular night, and it was annexation, and we bypassed that completely, and that got killed. So, but I think that is an area, and even the recent stuff, if commissioners do have ideas about how things are structured, if they're a part of a particular committee, is to come forward and talk to the city manager for guidance or get some answers to the questions before we assemble here. Not to air it too much in this area, but if you see something that doesn't look right, bingo, go right to it. And I just have no trouble making an appointment with Michael and sitting down and what about this, what about that? And could save a lot of problems in the future. So, but planning is always coming back to bite us somehow. And I just don't know. Of course, we have 7,000 experts around us. So that's the tough part.
And I'd say that planning is probably the thing that bites most communities,
Yes, yeah,
right? So,
yeah, no question. Yeah, so I know Quentin brings up the point, how much, what do we need to know? What don't we need to know? Is maybe, yeah, it's the kind of, to lay that out and so that we understand the process. All the commissioners understand what we get involved in, what we don't get involved in. And I give you credit for trying to, some of the things that have been existing are trying to change. And that doesn't happen overnight necessarily. So, but it is right now, everybody wants a growth policy. Well, we better show them a growth policy of however we do it. But we know certain things are immediate, and I think we have to tackle those rather pretty fast. So, but it's difficult to write a new script. So that's the other part. I yield.
Just to follow up, I want to just be able to say, yeah, I heard of it and I'm looking into it. That's all.
right. All right. Community citizen relations.
I'll start by saying I don't think we've ever had a better relationship with the county as we do now, stuff like that. There's a lot of things that we all do together with the county, and so I'm happy for that. And also leadership, some of the initiatives that have gone out with regards to local option tax and stuff like that. Been out front on that, and I like to see that. Thanks.
I can go next.
Sure.
I would like to repeat what Quentin said, that I think it's apparent you've worked really hard to foster good relationships with the county, which I think is going to serve the city well now and in the future. I know you used to attend brown bag lunches when they existed. That was before my time on the commission, but I think that's great. And if there's ever an opportunity like that again, where local leaders that are not government leaders can meet with you, I think that's a really efficient use of your time in terms of like meeting with lots of people regularly instead of having to do so many individual meetings, which are important, but a lot harder probably to fit in. I like that you did that, and I hope if there's an opportunity for you to join something appropriate like that again, that you would be willing to do it. I think that you've identified many of the challenges that come with communication, both with people at large, the citizens at large, as well as individuals. I think you've identified many of the challenges and that you've actually been taking active steps to improve it, evidenced by the website, for one, has seen a major overhaul, I think, just this past year. Making more information available on the website, even if it's taking people a while to figure out how to navigate it, at least it's there now when it wasn't there in the past. Social media, figuring out and thinking really mindfully about the appropriate ways the city can engage on social media. I like, for instance, the snow removal communication when different things are happening at the city level. Like, it's a nice, efficient way to get the word out without having to field 800 phone calls or 7,800 phone calls. I like those things. I think it's probably, I think the lowest score is like the impartial approach. I think this goes back to something I said earlier. I think your position is unique because you're always going to be pulled by competing interests. And I think that's what I would expect from your position. Quite frankly, I'd be concerned if you weren't constantly feeling pulled in lots of directions. It's part of the checks and balances, I feel like, with different positions in government and city. Yeah, I think somewhere in here, maybe it's later in the notes, but I just want to make sure I don't forget to say it. I think you have some other ideas that have not been implemented yet in terms of communicating with citizens. And I'm looking forward to seeing those actualized. Some different like listserv ideas and information officer, things that I think are going to improve these scores of community and citizen relations. I think the ideas are there. And once those come to fruition, it's going to help things even more. I hope and suspect.
I think in my,
Another area. Last year, we completed the water treatment plant. And unless you've seen what the heck it was and what it is now and what that whole project's all about, which very little of the community has, I get very high marks on that. It was so much energy and good people. Very, very important project. And that's all paid for. We're working on the streets right now. I happen to be walking down Clark. Wow. I think people really have to see what's happening in those, and it's a major, major undertaking, and the work that's going into it. But just to spend 5 minutes there and look at that equipment working and what they're doing and what's going in, and that's huge. And Shannon's and his department has done a great job there. Very important work. Don't hear too much about it for the community. Get it done before whatever is coming. But so we get involved in some pretty massive things, and an area that we don't think about too much, and one that really boils me as I get on in my years, we have a balanced budget. The federal government, don't think so. the state's in trouble, and I don't think we get enough credit for, it's huge to be accountable, for what we're doing. Um, so I think a lot of things that happen, and a lot of people don't see it happen and kind of take it for granted. But we've tackled some pretty big stuff here and doing real well. I yield.
I personally feel this is another strong place within our, not just in the evaluation, but in the city in general. I think we have improved greatly in the time I've lived in this community, and it's not even at the fault of any particular people or person, but it's more about this being an important uh, part again of your leadership style. And I think we're working really hard to get there. I think there's always room for improvement, and communication is going to be always that place that I am looking at it more critically, I think. Uh, I know with timeliness and my statement here, this is where I ended right before the finger situation, where people have groups, different boards, et cetera, have expressed some concerns about just communication in general and not getting comments back. And I know there's a difference between getting the information you want and the information. And so there can be a fine line, but on the other hand, there's some timeliness issues that I know that have been ongoing that we will work on. And as a commission, we need to be better at as well. And also in the other section where it meets with and listens to members, that's again in that reflection, it reflects the statement I just made that some people get frustrated by not getting comments back. And I think that not just comments or meetings or information in a timely fashion. I think we're improving. So that's more important to me than the fact that we're not perfect yet. But otherwise, I think this is a section that I have watched more and more improve over the years. So I appreciate it. Any other comments? You can comment here, but you don't have to.
I did, but this is probably the hardest part of the job.
You know, I never asked you this earlier, but do you want to comment at all? Okay. You haven't. So
It's feedback to me. I'll just
Yes.
listen.
next is staff and leadership.
I can go first on this one. I felt like this in some ways was the hardest section to score because the structure of our role and your role and the city staff is such that we don't have direct access to this information or direct feedback from the city staff. I mean, that's part of how it's set up. And so, which is appropriate also, I should say. It's appropriate that we should not be, that city staff should not have 6 bosses, right? So I found that this was like one of the most challenging ones. We had some indirect information from Lisa. Thank you, Lisa, for the confidential analyses of various reports you had that we could use in helping us rate it. And then in terms of like seeing the staff's work, everything is kind of indirect. By the time it gets to us, it's indirect and that's just part of the process. So I feel like it's difficult to score. And however, one thing I feel, I guess, confident in saying is it's clear that we have some real standouts for city staff. Even if the information I can get is only indirect, it's still clear that we have some standouts. And we're seeing the effects of some of these staff by the time things come to us. Mel, you've mentioned the budget many times at many meetings, that's changed. So obviously that's a reflection on some staff, some city staff, or a combination of many city staff, potentially, just as one example. But I just wanted to say that it does seem like we have a wide variety of, a wide variety of skills in our city. And it does seem like Livingston has some really probably competitive anywhere people working in different departments. So, yeah, and my scores reflect that. That's all I really wanted to say about that. Other than according to Lisa, I guess, you are evaluating regularly and providing opportunities and doing all those things. So, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add.
Else?
Yeah, there again, that's a hard one since we don't have direct interaction, so to speak, or we should not, unless we're seeking information from the staff. But nobody's has come to me and expressed any concerns one way or the other, regarding the city manager. So I guess that's a good thing because, it speaks for itself. Other than that, yeah, it's almost like, yeah, how do we, it's almost one of those questions, is it really relevant for us, but, yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Now, on this section, I have to comment that I feel just historically thinking of this as a historical aspect of the leadership in our community. The reason we initially put this into the evaluation is because there had been some concerns overall on how, like our evaluation document or evaluating style or how we evaluate staff. Are we doing it? Are we doing enough work of setting goals and rethinking that? So I know in the past it was discussed even before you, years ago. And so I think that this is a valid section in that we want staff that is, or a leader that's setting goals for their staff. We want someone who recruits and retains competent personnel. And I think we know about that in little parts and pieces, like in the fire and police departments. We know when there's turnover. You communicate that. We know why often it might be awesome, in a sense of, oh, this person's moving up into a new position. Or, we obviously don't know why people leave sometimes on a negative because that's not our business, but we often see the positives that I think are reflective of style of leadership. So I see a lot of great things happening here, and that's why I gave all 5s, which is the only place I did that. And the compensation and benefits plans we see through fire and police, often through accepting of contracts and working with the union information that we have. And then I know the training and development, we're sort of part of that. And you have been purposeful on training new commissioners as well as some of the training that goes on with other staff members we hear about or I see or um, just as mentioned. So I really appreciate this, that this is happening to the level that it is. Another strength, in my opinion. Anyone else on staff and leadership? It was also the highest score overall. Okay, we'll move on to fiscal management. Mel, do you want to start this one with about budget and fiscal management?
Fiscal, wow. You betcha.
Thought you would.
Oh, yeah, well, I just made, yeah, that one struck, we don't talk about that too much, but another area when it comes to the budget and things that we're seeing now that we didn't see before are the judges' operation. We got a pretty good, it's scary from one standpoint of the kind of things that the judge is dealing with. I mean, wow. But we never had that before, and I think that's a plus. But that generates some pretty good funds. But also, if you read the paper every night, every other day or whatever, when they print what she's dealing with, that's the scary part. But as I said, I rated that one of the highest because we it's such a critical area. And we used to spend a lot of time haggling and not understanding the budget. And I just haven't seen it since you've been on board. So it's presented to us, it's very clear, other options, and I think you do a great job. I thank you.
I'll follow up on that. Yeah, and the 4 years now that I've been on, this is the most clear, concise budget to understand. It's my weakness, when it comes to that stuff, and I really like the reporting and the stuff that finance has done, and keep up the good work.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I put that I thought your report was lovely on fiscal analysis. I really liked it. I really like that you, it's the ones that we used, the one that you sent out. I really like how you, I like data, and I like that you spelled out where we were as a city and where we are now. And one thing I think is really great, and it's kind of minor in here, but I think it's really great from a managerial perspective, is you talked about what a great accomplishment it was, and then you said that the accomplishment was because of the department heads. So you described this great win for our city, and then you are sharing that victory and not just claiming it as your own, but really saying this was a team effort. Like, look what we all did. And I really like that. Like, I think that that's the outcome is good, but also the way that you're presenting it as what a team effort it was from all the department heads, and it's not just one or two people. I think that that's like a really fantastic management style that's represented in this one part of your evaluation. And the more of that, the better, really.
Point. I would say the major change has been us not doing the CIP in the same way that we had before. So that's where I put the NA, because prepares the CIP, which is the style of the former city manager as well as the finance director. And it was also the request at the time of the city commission to focus on a CIP or on the CIP process. So we've changed that a little bit. And I think as a commission, we have to be happy with our budget process. And if there are wants or issues that, or concerns, I should say, then we should be expressing those. And if we wanted to get back to a more thorough CIP process and that traditional CIP, it would be a discussion item that we need to address. I liked how it went this last time, and there's, the other process was a little different, sometimes more confusing for some people. Sometimes they loved it. So again, I think it's a style issue versus necessarily a bad thing that we don't have the same process. As far as budget overall, I think we do a great job. And again, I like what Melissa said about the giving credit to the department heads because they work hard to cut when needed, and it's not easy and it's not fun. And yet we're still getting things done that need to be done. And I think another one of our major strengths in the city, and I appreciate you leading us through it. I would say, we've had some changes with that and in an accessible format that maybe there's something we could do for the community to even simplify it and more concrete, just a shorter synopsis of it might be something we could work towards in the future. And I don't think the commissioners would mind it either, in a, like, here's where we are snapshot. I don't know. All right. Anyone else on budget? Last. On narrative evaluation, our first question is, what do you identify as the city manager's strengths? Where has he excelled?
I can go first. I think these are strengths for whenever I think about a manager position: predictable and steady. Those are two really great qualities from a person that's overseeing lots of other people. And I feel that you are both of those things. I think that you are predictable, and you are, even keel, like you're not easily thrown when there's lots of things, not literally, but figuratively being thrown at you, hopefully not literally, with a focus on fiscal responsibility, which has already been demonstrated and talked about. I think one thing that our community likes is when you get creative. Like one of the things that was really received well was, and it sounds silly, but it's really not silly if you need it. If you need a fire hydrant, this isn't silly, but it sounds silly. Like this idea of digging out a fire hydrant for a pizza seems like this. Some people might think it's gimmicky, but really it's like serious, because if there's a fire in winter and all the hydrants are buried, we have a problem, like a really big problem as a city. So I think that was just like one example of the creativity that I've already talked about, of you bringing inexpensive, creative ideas to prevent really big problems from happening. And I think the community feedback on that has been overwhelmingly positive. I would love to see more examples of things like that as issues come up, like how to get the community really engaged and invested in our city. because that's like a win for all of us, you know? And I think, yeah, so thanks for coming up with that. And I think it was great. And that's just one, so it seems small compared to all the things you do, but I think it's just a really great example of what you can do.
I'm going to feed off of that because I've said it earlier, but I want to say it again that the most important quality of a good leader, I think, in city management is innovation. And I think it's not just that you're innovative, I think you create an environment for your staff so they can be innovative. And that is as valuable as anything. And I think of it with the rec department. I'm constantly blown away by how creative and interesting their opportunities are for people with very little budget. We know how expensive some of the things are, like our pool, yet we are trying to come up with ideas and like the training. What was the little lifeguards training? I can't remember the type. Junior aquatics. Those types of things are great, and I think it's a very reflective part of our community as well. Like Melissa was saying, people like that, but we're also as a community very creative, and so I think the city fitting into that role is perfect. It shows that we're all doing kind of the same thing, coming up with creative ideas to get through kind of a tough time of low budget or small budgets and various other problems and big problems, with small budgets. So I think that you leading us through that and our community through that and the city through that is your biggest strength. Anyone else on strengths?
Great job, great attitude.
Okay, I'm moving on. Next question, what performance areas would you identify as critical for effective city management?
I took extensive notes so I can begin. I think you're already doing a lot of the things that I personally would identify, like raising the bar for city staff and providing them with lots of opportunities for training and career development and success. I think you're doing that, or you're in the process of doing it where it might not have existed before. Focusing on fiscal responsibility, which has already been demonstrated. Working on new and diverse funding sources, which you're always doing, it seems like, for the wishes of our 40,000 people with the budget of the 7,800. And then coordinating departments, I think also, which you're also making great strides towards. I think with the strategic plan, I think that's an important part of coordinating departments for maximum efficiency. So all the things that I would identify, I think are in the works of being improved all the time. The big things, yeah.
I'm actually not going to make a statement on this because I feel like I've been stating what I value, so I'm not going to
Mhm.
repeat.
That doesn't. We probably got it at some point, yeah.
Yes.
I think Mike's a great listener and good at communicating and provides a positive environment. I mean, without those, three things, you're not going to get much done.
big part of that is, with all the knowledge that you have to have in so many different areas, is to surround yourself with some good people. And that ain't easy. So, but that's a big part of it. You know, we've had Lisa around for a hell of a long time. Some older people, younger people, some department heads have been here ever since I've been here, and that's good. They can only get stronger. And what all lost all is. But that's a big part. I mean, you can't do this by yourself. So, but when you do make a decision and you have the concurrence of people around you, that moves things along very well. So, I yield.
Okay, moving on. What constructive suggestions or assistance can you offer the manager to enhance performance? What areas need improvement? I'll start. I have already said them, but I will just restate a few of them. Communication can always be improved. I think timeliness of communications, but yet understanding that there's often factors that go into it. I don't ignore that part. I would like to make sure that we're not getting things lost on the back burner or putting them on the back burner and then going away. And that's partly our responsibility versus just yours, because we need to be on it as well and moving things forward and not letting those things get on the back burner for ourselves as a commissioner. I think I had another one and now I forgot what I was going to say. So I'm going to let others go and then I'll get back to it.
I can go. I was thinking, I already mentioned the listserv that you had brought up at some point. You brought up the idea of a listserv. I think it's a great idea. I almost, like one suggestion might be to consider categories. I think some people are really particularly interested only in certain topics, but not all topics. So it might be, I think there's probably automated ways to do this. So it's not a big time sink for whoever would have to do this job. But if somebody just wanted updates on like when the trail meetings were happening, so they were getting like the announcements, like the public notices or the agendas as soon as they were available online, they just automatically went out to the people that check parks and trails or planning or whatever the topic is. I think there's probably some efficient ways to do that because some people just watch for public notices, for instance, and as soon as that's uploaded, they can just be alerted. I think there's some ways to maybe be efficient about that, about specific topics to just keep the word out. And which would increase public engagement at those levels, which would be better for us as a commission, right? By the time things make it to the commission level, we'd have lots of public input already happening at our boards and our various other places where the community can engage. Given some of the more recent challenges, I think it might be beneficial to consider new ideas for nonprofit groups or non-governmental groups to engage with the city. I don't know whether that would be for to encourage those community members to go to boards when it's appropriate. Like if it's a topic that relates to trails, for instance, they could take their ideas to the trail board and hash out some of that there instead of with city staff, if that would be an efficient use of time. These are just ideas. I'm not married to any of them. It's just ideas. Another idea might be if a group is really passionate about a certain topic, just to schedule public comment or encourage them to use the 4 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. We already have some community leaders that do that on a regular basis. Just give us updates on what's happening. That could be another avenue where there's been some more recent challenges with communication to encourage these people or these groups to pursue another avenue to keep the conversation going. Those are just some ideas. or suggestions for alternative approaches.
Well said.
Any other?
Yeah,
Okay.
very good.
And the other thing that I will add to that, because I said I had a
Remembered now.
third, yes, and that is committees and boards. So one of our goals has been to, what, have more of a, I don't even know what words to use right now, more of a document that helps guide the boards, a guide in a sense. Then we also, I think, as a commission and as a city, need to be better about utilizing the expertise of the boards, and how do we have the boards inform us so that we can make decisions. And I think that's coming in the process. We have started, but I'd like to see that even more so. And I will always tell the Parks and Trails, but they work so hard. And I know that on occasion there's some things that get lost, and that's some back burner stuff, my responsibility as well, because I'm the commissioner on that board, as well as the city's responsibility of responding or joining in. But I think we are moving in a great direction, and I want us to continue. But I do think our boards are some of our major strengths as a city and as a commission and for the commission, and I don't want us to lose that. Last one on here. What have I done as a city commissioner to enhance and or impair your ability to perform your job? Maybe you should answer that. Okay. Oh, I was trying. Last moment.
Make him do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Me.
Yeah.
Mine, the answer is the same for both. We communicate a lot. That probably enhances and impairs your ability. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. It was funny.
But a little true.
No, I try to use your time mindfully together. But yeah, I mean, we talk between meetings. I want to make sure that I understand what's coming before us at the commission meeting and not try to figure it out at the meeting. I mean, some of that's inevitable that we're going to be figuring it out at the or learning at the meeting. But I do my best to be getting up to. I've been doing my best to get up to speed these last few months, and I appreciate that you've been sharing information in your time. And I also try to share with you when things pop up that seem like you should know, and it, you know, because it's things that you can act on, not the five of us. So, and I listen to you. I listen to your concerns, and I listen to your recommendations, and I take them seriously. So I think that's what I do to enhance our relationship.
One of the things we don't talk about too much, and I'm grateful for, we have a nonpartisan type of government. I see what my daughter goes through at the state level, and I thank our lucky stars. I mean, we're set up that way. I've seen in the past where some commissioners kind of strike that out and form their own little thing, which doesn't work too well. But that's an important ingredient, you know, to get things done. That we're not talking. I mean, that's a whole other ball game. So we don't think about that too much, but that's what we've had, and it's huge, really is. What's the best decision for the whole community, and not a political decision. Yeah.
I could definitely communicate more with Mike. I don't want to have dates and that's my fault, but I haven't had any great concerns or anything like that. A citizen brings it to my attention, and I bring it to Mike, and we go from there. So, let me know what I can do for you. Is what it comes down to. Thank you.
I would say how I have enhanced your role as a city manager. I think this is back and forth between us that we're both honest. And so if I have a concern, I'm honest about it. If you think I'm full of it, you're honest about it, or have to set me straight on it, and give me more information to better understand it. So I think that honesty is mutual, and I think it's important. Um, I think communication is one of our weaknesses as well, and I think I say that as a full commission. Um, our role is to be good communicators, and I expect you and the city to be good communicators. So I'm hoping that we'll improve on that. And I think that can impair your ability to perform your job as effectively if we're not great communicators as well. But I do think overall we do a lot of communicating and meet regularly and update regularly. So I think that's really one of our strengths as a working team. I almost want you to answer this, but I know I'm not going to make you because it's not fair. But I would hope that if there are some things that are being done to impair process or impair uh, your work because we're not doing something or we're making it harder, especially if it's city commission meetings or anything that you can come to me and ask me to work on it. And we've had conversations that we've figured things out and worked them through. So I think it's going well in that regard. So we're at the end. We have one last area or question, and that is any other comments. So what other comments do you have for the manager? Priorities, expectations, goals, or objectives for the next evaluation period? Is there anything that anyone would like to state?
Yeah, I can start. Even though I'm on the end, we said we weren't going to do that.
Oh, where'd yours go?
You're just going to have to come up with it
Blame
on the fly, Quentin.
document like I do.
Well, it's just kind of a summary of the whole evaluation anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, but, with regards to the strategic plan, I think that has been such a huge start for everything. And people in the community have mentioned that to me. What a way of thinking and way to go that they haven't seen, in the past. And it makes a big difference. So, run with strategic plan. I'm really happy with it. I yield.
Good.
So I'll add to it. I feel like this list we're pretty concrete on. We've all been stating expectations especially over the past 6 months on expectations of the city in the growth policy, in the downtown, street improvements, things that we need to get done and need it done sooner than later, including community participation and voice being heard on some of the not structural, but on the improvements and how we're moving forward with that. We've also, I think, I would like to see I'm going to say it out loud and people will be, the Girl Scouts property issue and moving that forward in moving the conversations forward. It is private property, we know that, but the conversation, I think, on multiple sides wants to continue, including the Girl Scouts, want to continue the conversation, as well as the city and the citizens. We also have, obviously, the crossing that we need to move forward sooner than later, and I know we have some ongoing plans for meeting in various areas of the community to get feedback. And then we also have funding of that project, major project. So we could go on and on, but I think we have multiple big projects and big wants in our community that I think are completely achievable, and I think we'll get them done. And right now I have only 2.5 years to do it. Okay. So I think, or less, maybe it's less as a commissioner. What's that? Oh,
We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
yes.
I can
Haven't
go.
heard that song in a long time.
I can respond next if you're. I just want to speak, since you brought up the Girl Scout property, I would say that is an interesting challenge that we've all inherited. I think we're in an interesting place because of decisions that preceded us, and the challenge precedes, most people in the room here, really. I would say I think Michael is doing a great job of staying engaged on the topic and respecting the challenge, and that the private property owner that he's dealing with represents, I don't even know, many thousands of people across 2 states. So it's a really unique situation and a difficult one for many reasons. But I appreciate and respect that you've taken such a mindful approach to this is the innovation and creativity with a big challenge. I think you're taking it, you're being very tactful and appropriate with a very complicated issue. And I do see that the conversation isn't dying, it's going forward. Understanding that not both, like all the pieces, there's so many pieces to this puzzle, and it takes a lot of broad thinking. And I think you're doing a great job of making sure that it's not stalling, and that all the players are feeling respected and heard, which is really, really hard. And I wanted to say that to Darrell so that you knew. It's something I'm very mindful of, also making sure that we keep the conversation going forward, because I think it's important for our entire community. All of us, Girl Scouts, not Girl Scouts, all of us. I have other things written in here, but I've already said them. But one thing that I haven't said, and it really weighs on me heavily, is I'm really concerned about decisions where, and this is shifting away from Girl Scouts now, decisions where we rely on documents that are related to our growth policy. So that would be various ordinances, like all of our zoning ordinances and different policies, different regulations. I'm very concerned about those decisions because our growth policy is reflective of a different time in Livingston. And I think that the last process we just went through this last month, where we had a pretty divided planning board and a pretty divided commission, like lots of different factors to weigh, I think it's reflective of the fact that our documents are so out of date and not reflective of our current community. I'm very, very concerned about those decisions, that we will continue. I'm worried that we're going to continue to be feeling like a divided community until those are updated. As far as I'm concerned, those cannot be updated soon enough, because I think it's going to make the process much smoother going forward from all of the players that influence the outcome of those decisions. And I think this was this really tangible, visible realization of how those documents need to be updated. And I think that's why it was such a difficult process in some ways, because I think a lot of those things surfaced in the process of the process, if that makes sense. And I think that's a really big challenge, and time is everything. What was your Smokey and the Bandit quote? Like, we have a lot to do in a short time. But I think we're gonna have to really be mindful that until those documents are updated, it's not gonna probably be easy in any of our roles. So the sooner we can get there, I think the better for all of us. And I don't know how to speed that process up and have it be effective. But I think we need to really think hard as a commission, like, and the city manager, like how we can get there and effectively, respecting that we need those to reflect our community today, to make good decisions where we feel united. Everything else I already said, so I'm not gonna be repetitive.
And one last one I forgot was Parks and Trails funding. I know we have, some big ideas of a swim center concept, which we would be partners in, even though it's starting out as a privately motivated issue. But I think Parks and Trails, yes, some people will say, I don't care about any parks and trails, but we know that funding it and their value to a community is proven throughout the United States, and and for property values, for everything related to private property as well. So I want us to continue thinking how through that issue, because we need to. We have a lot of problems and lots of great ideas as well. And, an antiquated swimming pool that is leaking, things like that. So the Parks and Trails issue is not just because I'm on the board, but because I know the value of it. And I feel that it's important to our community. That's all on my side.
Yeah, I was just, in regard to what Melissa is talking about, I think we've all, in our lives, received a box of puzzle pieces. And on the front of the box is the picture. And the pieces fit the picture. And we got the reverse situation. We get a box of puzzle pieces and there's no picture on the front. The weirdest darn puzzle pieces I've ever seen. And you got to put the whole thing together. That's how I look at this whole thing. And everybody's got an idea about it, of course, what the picture should be. So it's a real challenge. Put that puzzle together.
I'll just close by saying, yeah, we're playing catch up and stuff, and we're trying to, everything we're doing is very ambitious, and we need to keep moving forward with our infrastructure and everything else. There's a lot to be done that needs to be done. That's been, put on the back burner for way too long. But I like the direction we're going and the way we're going. So I thank you.
All right. So we are at the moment where it's not in our evaluation, but we make a motion to renew the contract, which we always vote in the positive, or not vote, we state in the positive, and then we can vote on that motion if either any way you want. So do we have a motion from the commission to renew?
So
Oh.
I will say, ideally, you probably shouldn't, because I serve at will, so I wouldn't renew me for a year.
Good point. But we have in the past done this now.
Probably wasn't the best idea.
Look at him managing.
Do we have a motion from the commission to renew it for a week? How about that?
Give me,
And day by day.
For 5 more minutes.
Maybe have a gold star.
Okay, good point.
For a gold star.
So why did we do this in the past and now we're not doing it?
I don't know, what did we do last?
Yeah,
I try not to focus on
Lisa?
the past.
do you, what,
Unless there's something to be learned for. Oh, sorry.
yeah. Right.
Right. that makes
Okay.
sense, yeah.
Well, good. 'Cause you wouldn't like my vote anyway. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm totally kidding, you guys.
Jonathan's-
Come on.
Jonathan's working on
This
over
stuff's
there.
serious. We gotta,
For
gotta
everybody
lighten up.
listening to the recording, she is smiling.
I am smiling. I was kidding. No, I'm just teasing. Sorry. When it's heavy,
Be able
you
to have
gotta,
fun. Emotion,
exactly.
have fun meetings.
Yes. 'Cause sometimes they're not very fun and we need, need some fun. All
I
right.
will say, yeah, thanks for keeping the meetings. I mean, the agendas have been great. so.
Yeah, the
I didn't
agendas are great.
Put that in early, so.
Yes. And I like the calendar. So
Yeah.
you didn't come prepared to speak. So is there anything you want from us more before we close this meeting?
Nope,
Do you
just
any more comments that are
thanks for the feedback.
clarification?
And I'd just like to thank the staff for all the help over the last year in being able to provide you this feedback because they've done a lot of great work.
All right.
I often like to say I don't actually do anything. I just let them do it and take the credit.
He's doing it already. He's incorporating our feedback.
There it
already.
is.
Look at him go.
Do I have a motion from the commission for adjournment?
Well, I'll just say in closing, thanks, Mike. Good job. Keep it up.
Yes. I didn't get the motion. I just got a so moved.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Mel?
Second.
We have a motion from Short or by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please. Yes.
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 This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is adjourned at 7:16 p.m.